Hello, this is the introduction of our project. It entails gaseous exchange, integuments, lungs, fish, and gills in fish, and lastly, we talk about the ventilation in mammals. So, I'll briefly introduce gaseous exchange about the process, how it works. In the next video, we'll see how gaseous exchange works. But before the video comes, let me introduce what's gaseous exchange and where it works. So gaseous exchange is a biological process through which oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between the lungs and the metabolism bloodstream. This process is essential for the respiration, allowing organisms to obtain the oxygen needed for cellular metabolism, while removing carbon dioxide, a waste product of metabolism. Mechanisms of gaseous exchange entails oxygen uptake and carbon dioxide removal. And then when we talk about oxygen uptake, the air is inhaled into the lungs, oxygen diffused from the alveoli into the blood in the surrounding capillaries. This concerns occurs because the concentration of oxygen is high in the alveoli in blood, creating a gradient that facilitates diffusion. And in carbon dioxide removal, simultaneously carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli. This happens because the concentration of carbon dioxide is higher in the bloodstream than in the alveolar air, thus allowing air move out of the bloodstream into the lungs to be exhaled. In the next video, we'll see how this works.
Gaseous exchange refers to the process of oxygen and carbon dioxide moving between the lungs and blood. Air passes into the lungs via bronchi, bronchioles, and then into alveoli. This is where gaseous exchange takes place. Alveoli are individual hollow cavities contained within alveolar sacs or ducts. There are approximately 3 million alveoli within an average adult lung. They have very thin walls, which permit the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide gases. A network of small blood vessels called capillaries, into which the inspired gases pass, surrounds alveoli. Diffusion occurs when molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. This occurs during gaseous exchange because the blood in the capillaries surrounding the alveoli has a lower concentration of oxygen than the air in the alveoli, which has just been inhaled. Because both alveoli and capillaries have walls which are only 1 cell thick, this allows gases to easily diffuse from one to the other. The same happens in reverse with carbon dioxide, CO2. The blood in the surrounding capillaries has a higher concentration of CO2 than the inspired air. Therefore, CO2 diffuses the other way, from the capillaries into the alveoli, where it can then be exhaled or breathed out. We can see the results of gaseous exchange from comparing air we breathe in with the air we breathe out. For more information or to test yourself with our interactive quizzes, visit teachpe.com.
So in this video, let's talk about the integuments. Now, what's an integument? Is a protective outer layer or covering organism's body. It serves as a physical barrier between the external environment and the internal environment, protecting and maintaining the body. Integument is a key part of integumentary system, which include the skin, nails, hair, and associated glands such as structure. Functions of integuments: design, protection, regulation, sensation, and excretion, synthesis. Types of integuments can take from different forms in various organisms. In vertebrates like humans, the integument is the skin and its associated structures are hair, nails, glands. In invertebrates, the integument may be cuticle, shell, or like skeleton. In plants, the integument refers to the area surrounding the ovule that become the seed coat. So the next video, let's talk about lungs Gills. Let's talk about the gills in fish.
Our skin is made up of 3 important layers. These are known as the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. The layer below the hypodermis is the muscle. The epidermis is the outer layer, and it's made up of mostly skin cells. These cells constantly die and get replaced with new cells regularly. This layer provides a waterproof barrier against microbes. This layer also contains melanin, which determines the color of your skin. If you have more melanin, then you'll have darker skin. On the other hand, if you have less melanin, then you will have lighter skin. Melanin is important as it helps to protect our skin from harmful sun rays. The dermis is the second layer of the skin. It contains hair follicles, sweat glands, tough connective tissue, and nerve endings. The nerve endings help to send messages to the brain regarding what you've touched, and the brain decides how you'll respond. For example, if you touch something that's very hot, such as a hot pan, then the nervous system will tell the brain to move away from it. The sweat glands is where the sweat is generated and is released through the epidermis through the pores. Sweat is important as it helps us to regulate our body temperature. For example, when you become too hot, then you will sweat more so your body can cool down. The hypodermis is the third layer. It's also known as the subcutaneous tissue. This layer is mainly made up of fat and connective tissue. Fat is important for our body as it helps us to keep warm and provides protection for our bones and organs. Therefore, the hypodermis's main function is to store fat for these reasons. So the skin contains sensory receptors which send signals to the central nervous system. This is how we feel things.
So in this video, let's talk about gills in fish. Now, gills are the respiratory organs found in many aquatic animals, including the fish, crustaceans, and some amphibians. Gills are highly specialized structure that allow these organisms to extract oxygen dissolved in water and expel carbon dioxide. Structure and function of gills. Gills typically consist of thin, breaching feathery structure that are supply rich in blood vessels. This large surface area of the gills allows the efficient of gas exchange and oxygen from the water diffuse into the blood while the carbon dioxide diffuses out. Water flows over the gills out as an organism opens its mouth, allowing the gills to extract the dissolved oxygen. And the delicate nature of the gills is possible because the surrounding water provides physical support, unlike the in-breathing air lungs of terrestrial organisms. The importance of gills. Gills are crucial for the survival of aquatic organisms, and water contains only a small fraction of the gill dissolved in oxygen. And the higher the surface area of the gills, especially for the efficient oxygen needed to meet the metabolic demand of this organism. Gills also play a role in regulating organism's internal salt and water balance through the specialized cells. In the next video, let's talk about the lungs.
Unlike land animals, almost all fish breathe or get their oxygen from water. Instead of using lungs, fish breathe with organs called gills. Most fish have 4 pairs of gills enclosed in a gill chamber on each side of the head. On the outside of the body, a flap of bone called a gill cover protects the gills of bony fish. To get oxygen, fish gulp water through the mouth and pump it over the gills. In many fish, the breathing process begins when the gill covers close and the mouth opens. The walls of the mouth then move inward. the mouth partially closes, and the gill covers open. This action forces the water from the mouth into the gill chambers. The inside of each gill consists of fleshy, thread-like filaments. Water from the mouth passes over the filaments. The filaments are closely spaced along a gill arch in 2 rows. Each filament has many tiny extensions called lamellae. Blood flowing through the lamella takes oxygen from the water and releases carbon dioxide into the water. After the fish receives its oxygen, the water passes out through the gill openings and the breathing process begins again.
In our research video, you will see lungs. Okay, lungs are the essential organs in the respiratory system, primarily responsible for the exchange of gases, bringing oxygen into the body and expelling carbon dioxide out of the body. They are located in the chest cavity and are protected by a layer of tissue known as the pleura. Okay. In our next video, we are going to talk about anatomy and function, breathing process, and then finally importance of lung.
Lungs are made up of areas called lobes. Your right lung has 3 lobes, and your left lung has 2. Your left lung is smaller than your right because it shares that side of the chest with your heart. Your trachea carries air into the lungs. The trachea divides into airways called bronchi. These branch into smaller and smaller airways, and at the end of these airways are tiny air sacs called alveoli. Within the alveolar walls is a dense network of tiny blood vessels. The extremely thin barrier between the air and capillaries allows oxygen from the air you breathe to diffuse from the alveoli and into the blood. As the cells in your body work, they produce a waste gas called carbon dioxide, which is released into the bloodstream. Your lungs get rid of this waste gas when you breathe out. The oxygen-rich blood then travels from your lungs to the heart, where blood is pumped to the rest of your body. More specifically, it flows from the lungs to the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. Your mitral valve opens to send blood from your left atrium to your left ventricle. When your left ventricle is full, it squeezes, opening your aortic valve. Your heart sends blood to your aorta, where it flows to the rest of your body. At each body part, a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries connects the very small artery branches to very small veins. The capillaries have very thin walls. Through them, nutrients and oxygen are delivered to the cells, and waste products are brought into the capillaries. Capillaries then lead into veins, which carry the deoxygenated blood back to the right side of the heart. From there, it is pumped back to your lungs to collect a fresh supply of oxygen, and the entire cycle starts again. Thank you for watching this video. Please check out my next video if you want a more detailed overview of how the heart works.
And now let's finish with the ventilation in mammals. So we shall talk about in the next video. We'll see how ventilation works. Now ventilation refers to the process of moving air in and out of lungs, which is crucial for the gaseous exchange in mammals. This process ensures that oxygen is brought into the body and the carbon dioxide is expelled, maintaining the necessary balance for cellular respiration. Anatomy of respiratory system, we'll see about that, how it enters. Mammalian air enters into the respiratory system through the nasal cavity. It goes to pharynx, larynx, then trachea. We will see how air travels in the bronchi, which branch is more tubes leading to alveoli, the thin air sacs where gas exchange occurs. We see the mechanism of ventilation, how it works, inhalation and exhalation, how the diaphragm works, and how we control the breathing. Now here breathing can be regulated by central pattern generator located in the medulla oblongata. our brainstem. This area responds to changes in the blood chemistry, particularly in the increase of carbon dioxide and the level or decrease in oxygen level, prompting adjustment in the ventilation rates. So this is how the respiratory systems works, and here it explains all the functions and how the blood flows from one side to another. And this is how our project will be like. So I hope everyone will see this clip before I do my own editing. Yes, so I'll add my voice, other things will go on.